Team, welcome back to another episode on the Live, Perform, Compete podcast. Today, I'm joined by Simone Arthur, who is a nutritionist at The Method now. She's over in Australia. Simone, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
A bit of context, myself and Simone have been talking probably for about 40 minutes now. And in the introduction, Simone's been rambling on with a ton of amazing content and knowledge, and I kept on cutting her off. And I only just told her after 40 minutes that we actually weren't recording, and this was just supposed to be a little catch up. But what I will tell you is that there's some belters coming your way, because I basically heard the whole podcast already.
Oh my gosh. You can tell it's my first time being on a podcast. Don't even know what to do. Just happy to be here.
Well, Simone, I mean, just a bit of background story. The way that I kind of came across you is that you started working with one of my clients. And the client that I work with has worked with other nutritionists in the past, and has been great at allowing me to be a part of her journey there. And just been super impressed at the way that you've approached that whole, her journey, but just specifically coach-client relationship has been very unique to what I've seen in the past. So I've just been super impressed, and kind of the more I speak to her about it, the more I've wanted to have you on this podcast to talk about not just that, but just kind of everything you do, your approach. And I guess to kick things off, kind of what brought you to this position that you're in today?
Well, I think a lot of things I've been really fortunate in my life. It's kind of like all the good things that have happened to me have just kind of like been handed to me. I've just kind of been in the right place, right time. So, when I came back because I studied overseas in the US, was there for about 4.5 years. And then when I moved back to Australia, I was like, I wanted to move to Adelaide because that's where my cousin was training at the time, James Newby. I'll just name drop right there. So I moved there, and then, I started training down there, and I met Kayla, his partner. And a couple of years after living down there, she started the company called The Method, and it was an online nutrition, coaching platform. And I was the first coach to work with her because at that time, I was just getting into competing, and I was, getting super into nutrition because I wanted it for my own benefit. So I was studying a lot, and also I studied it at university as well. Did some courses at university, and just became really interested in nutrition and just application to my life. I'd always been someone that was super interested in health and fitness, and, went through all the different diets and all the different phases. And, I kind of just wanted to find out once and for all, what was the deal. And so, from there I did my own learning, and then Kayla was like, hey, I'm starting The Method. Do you want to be my first coach? And, kind of right place, right time. And it just kicked off from there. And here we are 4 years later, still just loving it and learning so much all the time, which has been so awesome. It's probably the best thing that's happened to me for sure.
Well, I think you have to give yourself some credit there. It wasn't just handed to you. You studied away at university, you put yourself in the right situations, and, you ended up doing something you love. My next question, I guess, is what type of clientele are you typically working with, Simone?
Probably more athletes, definitely in the space of CrossFit and that functional fitness, simply because it's just a realm that I know. I'm comfortable, I know that. But I've worked with a bunch of different athletes. I've worked with, some Olympians, doing downhill skiing. I've worked with race car drivers. I've worked with netball players, military, first responders. So just a broad range, but mostly people in the athletic realm. So someone that's actively working towards an athletic goal. But as I've expanded my, I suppose, coaching knowledge, I definitely am working more with people who are, just looking at improving their lifestyle, just looking to get healthier, just looking to get just some guidance. So it's typically mostly athletes. But having said that, it's always different. It's like a revolving door.
Out of interest, what is it that interests you about athletes?
I think the mindset of an athlete is just like, it's either you do it or you don't. And to me, that's a way that I think it's very sort of black and white. It's either you do the thing that needs to be done in order to get to your other goal, like your overall goal, or you don't do it. And then you suffer the consequences, and you have to be okay with that. So I think for me, they're always so driven. So it's, you don't sort of have to, it's not like you're babying people, but it's like you tell them something and they're eager to learn. They're eager to understand, like, oh, okay, well, this is definitely helping me. It's not like, hey, do this. And they're like, oh, I'm not sure. It's like, they're like, okay, cool, I'll do that, because this is going to help. And they sort of, they dive headfirst into it, and they just want to do that, because nowadays with athletics, it's all about, the 1%, and they're wanting to sort of dial in every aspect. And, I definitely find, coming from, having an athletic background, that it's just easy, because, you kind of know what they're going through, in a sense, just with training and being away from the gym, being in the gym, day to day. So I definitely find it easy to relate to athletes, for sure. And it helps on a personal sense as well, because, like you said, like the coach client relationship, that's super important with any coach, anyone that you have. You have to have a good relationship with them to, when to go, push them a little bit, and when to have the hard conversations, and when to sort of be there for, just a shoulder to lean on. Like, so I think, yeah, that's, really important. That's probably what I enjoy most about, coaching athletes.
So I'm interested in that last point there about, being there for your clients. A lot of not even talking about, the elite of the elite athletes, but a lot of folks who are probably investing in nutritionists are probably also investing in a coach sometimes, or at least, being a part of a training organization. Maybe it's a CrossFit affiliate. They might have something like a mental health coach or a life coach. Like, coaching is something that's really accessible these days compared to previously. Where does, maybe you don't even have it, but kind of like, where are your boundaries, as a nutrition coach? Or I guess, what are you typically working with? And does it go beyond just nutrition and macros and calories?
I think, well, in our space, we have to be careful, because, obviously we have a scope and we must stay within that. And I'm always trying to be very respectful of that, because, if there comes to a point where a person may need to be moved on to someone in, a professional sense of like counseling or something like that. So you always have to respect your scope of work, which is super important. Is something that I'm always looking out for. But, I always try to treat it like, this is a place, with check-ins with your coach, or, check-ins with me, like, this is a place where you should feel safe always, as if you're talking to, your best friend. Like, you should feel like, in terms of like what you think or what you feel, like, nothing should feel off limits. It's a non-judgmental place. And if you feel confident enough to talk about that, and say you have some, some stuff going on, some deep-rooted stuff going on that maybe I personally cannot help you with, at least you've addressed it, you've got it out, and it's out there. And now it's like, hey, well, I'll still help, like, work with you, and I want to be there for you, but, we can get you extra help, from a different, profession where that's in their scope. So it's probably the limit there where you might be getting into, falling into a different scope. But I always try to make sure that, my clients feel as if, hey, like, I just want to have a conversation with a friend. Like, I just want to feel comfortable. Nothing is off limits. I mean, we talk about poos, we talk about, all different stuff. So it's like, I feel like if you can talk about poo with anyone, it's like, sweet, you're best friends for life, because that's some like next level stuff. But yeah, it should be a safe space to talk about anything. And it should be like, you should feel like when you finish talking about anything, it should be like, oh man, like, I really felt heard. Because a lot of times it's like coaches, they might talk to, you might talk to a coach, but you don't feel heard because, they're just waiting to reply. And, that's something that I've, sort of looked at over the last couple of, years. It's like, are you actually listening, or are you just waiting to reply to them? So being just a soundboard for them, and just being like a quiet wall, like just a wall for them to just like blurt out everything or just chat to someone. I find that really helps build the relationship, and it makes them, a lot better as well, because, if they know that, I suppose if there's someone there that they're like working hard for, it makes them feel good, because it's like, hey, I know that they're there for me. I know that they're actually, in my corner. It's like, okay, like I definitely, I really want to, go hard at this.
Yeah, I think that sometimes, all of us as coaches fall into the trap of is thinking that we have to provide the solution or the answer and immediately. Whereas, as you said, being able to listen is sometimes, the best thing to do.
Absolutely.
Something you talked about at the start, Simone, was, something that made this being a topic of interest for you, nutrition, is that you as an athlete suffered probably a lot of the pitfalls and made a lot of the mistakes and tried everything out there. What were some of those things that you experimented with over the years, and what led you to finally search for the answer?
Oh man, I think I tried everything. So I played soccer at university over in the States, and it was just like a brand new world to me. And so, like, they call it the freshman 15 when you go over there your first year, because it's like you're straight out of home, you're like all by yourself, and then you just like eat and eat and eat. And so, like, I gained like a little bit of weight, and that like stressed me out a bit, because I was like, oh, I need to be fit, I need to be lean for soccer. So like tried keto, tried, high protein, low carb, high fat, tried, intermittent fasting, tried, just a bunch of different things. I even think I tried like being a vegan for a week, and I struggled with that. So it definitely I went through the whole spectrum of, diets, I suppose, just because like when I did, my superficial research, like that's what came up, and it was like all these people are saying it works. And then I think it wasn't until I got to my senior year and I started working in a strength and conditioning room. My mentor at the time, Josh Lawson, he was like super into like fitness and health, and he was a big dude, like he was jacked, like skinhead, big mustache, and I just thought he was like, he listened to like heavy metal rock, and I was like, man, this guy's just like a beast. And so we would just lift together, and he kind of like got me into like weightlifting, and he like started introducing me to RP strength. And so it kind of kicked off from there. Like I started looking more into RP strength and reading a lot of like of their stuff, and it kind of just manifested from there. It's like I started to learn about, why carbs are important for training. And I think when I moved back to Australia, and I was like, and I saw James doing regionals, because I was finishing soccer and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I saw James at regionals. I think my mum posted a video. I was like, oh, look how fit he is. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this looks cool. I kind of want to do this. And so I like got back to Australia, and I was like to James, I was like, hey, like, can I come down there and come train? And then he's like, yeah, sweet. So I like moved down there like a month later, and I was like, man, I want to make regionals. Like I'd never done CrossFit before. I was like, I want to make regionals.
Yeah, classic.
And everyone's like, oh yeah, okay. And so I was like, oh, I really want to do this. So I like started training, and then I like started applying the things that I'd been learning. So I was like doing a bunch of my own research and just applying it to my training. And then, still like, I think back to then to what I know now, and I was just like, oh, like you just had no idea. But I think it was good, because it made me realize that there's just so much information out there to sift through. But like, you have to also like critically think, if something feels good, and it feels good long-term, like, then yeah, you probably should keep doing that. If it like only feels good for like a little bit and then stops feeling good, then it's probably not something that you want to gravitate towards. And so I really kind of found my feet in terms of like nutrition and things like that. I think that second year, so I did the Open scaled in 2016, and then I did the Open RX in 2017, and that's when I made regionals. And that's when I was like really starting to get into it and like really starting to pay attention to how much I was eating, you know, how frequently I was eating, how much sleep I was getting, how much water I was getting, and just really trying to like master the basics. And then from there, it just grew and grew and grew and grew. And then once I started working with the method, I started realizing that there's a lot of people that had same, you know, experiences that I had, and it was easy to give information from that, just from my own experience. But also they experienced all these other things. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to know about this. So I'd go off and I'd research as much as I could about that. And figure out, you know, why that was happening to them or what they were experiencing. And, you know, first it just started off with like the basics of like why sleep is important, why getting enough carbohydrates is important, all those sort of why water is important. And then as it's grown, I've looked more into like the mental side of things, like the psychology behind why people think, you know, about certain things, like why this makes them feel that way, or, you know, and it just keeps evolving, like year to year, month to month, like it just always is evolving and like always constantly learning so much different stuff. And it's like your head just like, that's awesome. It's really good.
Yeah. I mean, I think the mental side of things is, you know, has such a massive impact on all of this. I even in my own coaching journey, the mental part was probably the last thing in my coaching toolbox I ended up addressing. It was always about periodization and strength conditioning, and then it became about nutrition, and then it came about, you know, lifestyle and sleep and stress, and then it was like this massive bucket that I didn't think was that important. It was the mental side of things. And then wow, when you start kind of digging into that, just I mean, it's forever and ever we'll be exploring it.
It's like a whole other side to it. And I didn't really start paying attention to it until James was instrumental, I think, in helping me as an athlete and as a coach. Him and both Kayla, they both have very different personalities, but the things that I learned about training from James and about life from Kayla, they were just instrumental in what helped me being a coach. I definitely have like a lot of influence, like back from like Josh Lawson back at, you know, when I was in school, and then to them, like I've always had these great mentors in my life that have given me, you know, I suppose wisdom in different areas. You know, I have certain areas where I'm comfortable, you know, giving advice and things like that. Whereas other areas, you know, it might be quite foreign to me, but I've had mentors in those areas who can explain things to me that I understand, and I can give that to others as well. So I've been, you know, very fortunate in that sense to have, you know, people guiding me through and giving me really good sound advice as well, which has been really, really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about where do we start then? You know, you kind of talked about your own journey there, trying everything and then finally honing in on something that actually kind of started to make sense and work. You know, for perhaps the, you know, the general listener, is that where do you even start? You know, when you start talking about macros, calories, you know, types of diets, you know, versus balanced diet, you know, what is typically your go-to starting place?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of information out there, and, you know, it's easy to get overwhelmed, but I think, you know, something that's really helpful is just tracking your food. Not many people know how much they're eating. Like you can rattle off, oh, you know, I had cereal for breakfast and I had a sandwich for lunch and whatever, but like you don't actually know how much of that you're eating. And when you think about how much you're eating, you know, when you think about a sandwich, you just think, oh, I just had, you know, meat and cheese and whatever, but like you don't actually consider, you know, if you have sauce on it, if you have, you know, tomato on it, like you don't actually consider that, and it all adds up. So, you know, just tracking your food, that starts like a paper trail for you is data collecting. So data is super important when you're, you know, trying to get somewhere, especially, you know, if you're like trying to lose weight or you're trying to maintain weight. So just tracking your food for a week, because we work on weekly averages. You don't want to work day to day because the body can fluctuate day to day, and what feels really good one day might not feel really good the next. So you have to work on like a weekly basis. That gives you a broader range. So yeah, just tracking your food for a week and figuring out like what the weekly average is. And it's pretty eye-opening because like people sometimes, you know, have in their head, oh my gosh, like I'm eating a lot, and it spits out to be like, I don't know, something super low, or they're like, oh, I don't feel like I'm eating that much. And then they actually, you know, adding in sauces, adding in, you know, teaspoons of sugar, and they see like, oh my gosh, like this is what I'm eating. And it's quite eye-opening. It can be confronting as well, because a lot of people, you know, see a certain number and it's like, oh, like that's scary. But yeah, it's just a good place to start. Just literally just tracking your food, not even trying to hit numbers, not even trying to understand what protein, carbs, and fat and all that is yet. It's just literally just track your food for a week, track it for a month, and see what the changes are. See what the changes are month to month. Like that will give you a better understanding. For sure.
I guess a lot of that is to do with just establishing your baseline, right? If you're going to start making changes or think about making change, you've got to know where you're starting, because which I'm sure about we'll talk about in a second, but you know, changes have to be small and incremental and done somewhat strategically, I guess. You know, definitely. I guess some myself, you know, before I ever started tracking macros, was I created an association that tracking macros was only for like the type A kind, the person who was like, I'll do anything you say, sir, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get to the goal. But you know, kind of hearing you talk about that, it's like everyone could benefit from tracking it. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you don't have to be that type A person, but even just to get started, it would be really good. Because I'll tell you something that I experienced when I first started tracking, this was quite a while ago, was that, as you said, it was really insightful and became very educational, very, very eye-opening, that it actually became kind of an enjoyable process. And I think once you've done that process of tracking, even just once, even for 1 week, you then kind of have your level of knowledge and understanding as to proteins, carbs, fats, calories is just suddenly exponentially higher, that you can kind of, everything kind of makes a little bit more sense then, just from that 1 week of being a bit diligent with your tracking.
Yeah. And it's just like, again, it's just eye-opening. It's like, you might not even have a goal. It's just like, hey, I just want to understand how much I'm eating. And, you know, even if you just do it 1 week, it's like, oh, okay. Like, all right, this is what I've done in a week. And if you're like someone who's new to tracking, like I reckon, like if you were someone that's like, all right, I really just want to make a change here and I'm ready to make change, I don't know where to start, I would literally just like track for a month. Just see what a month is like, because, you know, what happens in 1 week, and like you see this always, is like people have 1 week, you know, where it's like, oh, like I'm in a schedule, like this is my schedule week. And then maybe next week they go out 2 nights a week and they're like, oh, that wasn't a normal week for me. But it's like, when you look at a whole year, it's like, yeah, it probably is. Like maybe you went out 2 nights, like maybe you don't do that, you know, in 2 weeks, but like in the course of a year, yeah, you probably go out, you know, 3 weeks of the year, like total days. So it's good for you to map it out and just like see, okay, what's my average, you know, week to week. So if you did it over a month, you get 4 weekly averages. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I know, you know, it fluctuates between this and this and this. And then again, like if you're plotting your weight, you can also see like if the averages that you're eating at, you know, are quite the same, and, you know, you weigh yourself, and again, the averages of that, say they don't change, like maybe they have small spikes and stuff like that, but they don't change. And you probably can say, oh, I'm eating at maintenance calories. You know, if it's gradually going up and you're eating roughly the same, you could probably say, hey, I'm probably in a caloric surplus. And the same as if it was going down, it's like, hey, maybe I'm in a deficit. So it's always good to track data just for the sake of tracking data, so you know where you're at, you know, and you need a long time. The thing with like diets and that diet mentality is, oh, like, you know, I'm really excited to start, you know, and they smash it the first week and they track the first week. And then maybe the next week something changes and they're like, oh my gosh, this isn't working anymore. Oh my gosh, my weight went up. Or, oh my gosh, like this thing that I wanted to happen didn't happen. But it's like, hey, like you've been doing it for 2 weeks. Like you've lived how many years of your life? You think 2 weeks is going to be a massive difference? So just taking the time to track and like settling in and be like, okay, like this is going to be a bit of a process, is important as well. Like that's just as important, like with counting macros as well. You have to allot time and be like, hey, like I'm going to saddle up. I'm going to be in this for the long haul.
Okay, interesting. So, once you've gone through, and I think just to clarify there, you talked about weekly averages, and that is basically what you're saying is that, you're taking your 7 days of tracking, and then it's going to equate to an average per day in the week is a much better way to look at it versus just on a day-to-day, because it changes all the time.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so now you've gone through a tracking process, and now I guess this is the beauty of the coach, the individualization process, because everyone is going to be completely different.
Yeah.
But what are your general rules? What do you do then? Someone's gone through a week of tracking, 2 weeks of tracking, a month of tracking, and they're starting to see kind of, okay, here's what my daily average is looking like. What next? What next based on the varying goals that you deal with?
Yeah. So again, it's all situational dependent. Like what works for someone won't work for another person. And so you have to keep that in mind. So say, they track for a week and it's like, hey, this is my weekly average. The process with the method is we get a bit of a questionnaire, and we always call the client as well, because it's important to get to know them. You can't learn about someone's life just off a questionnaire. You have to get to know them. So there's some things that I'll ask them in their questionnaire. I'll ask about what their dieting history has been like in the last sort of 18 months to 2 years. It's like, have you been actively trying to lose weight before you've come and seen me? Have you been, maintaining weight? What have you been doing? Like, what have you been trying? And so understanding their history is just is an important piece of the puzzle. Again, because it's all situational, it's all person dependent.
Can I just stop you there real quick, Simone?
Yeah.
Diet history. I agree, super important. Why is it so important? Why is it, if you've had someone who's, let's say, tried every diet under the sun and they've gone yo-yoing from one thing to another, why is that something that you need to know now if you're going to be starting to help someone in their journey?
Because they might, just be like, they might just be feeling absolutely, can I swear on this podcast?
Absolutely, swear away.
Sorry, Mum, if you're listening. They can be like absolutely just feeling so shitty that when they get to me and they're like, hey, I've tried everything, I still want to lose weight, I'm going to look at that and be like, well, hey, maybe you're not in a position to diet. Maybe you have to earn back that right, because you've been just destroying your body trying to lose. And like, it's not like they wanted to do that. They have a goal of losing weight, let's say. And it's not like, oh, I want to destroy my body. It's like, hey, I just want to lose weight. But they don't understand the whole process of that. So if they're coming to me, they're like, oh, I've tried keto, I've tried intermittent fasting. Already in my head, I'm going, okay, they've already tried all these calorie deficits. So if they come to me and they're like, I want to lose weight, as a coach, you're like, okay, to lose weight, they need to be in the calorie deficit. But if they've just like been eating zero food and getting no nutrients, I'm not going to send them straight into a calorie deficit. That would just be like, that would be awful. And that would be irresponsible for me as a coach to do that to them, because it's just not like, you just don't do that. Like you have to be helping this person feel good. And at the end of the day, like, yes, looking good is a part of, what makes us feel good. But, if you're tired all the time, you can't sleep, your training sucks, you've got no sex drive, your hair's falling out, your nails are brittle. There's no, like, that sucks. That literally sucks. And you have like this wonderful life to live. And if you feel shitty all the time, just in this pursuit to look good, that sucks. And so it's my job to be like, hey, well, I know you've tried all these things. And, they may have worked in the past, but clearly not, because you're here right now looking for help. So we need to do something in order to reverse, what you've created. So it's kind of like, in order to take, 2 steps forward, we kind of had to take 1 step back first. And so, yeah, that's important why you have to get dieting history, because, they can just come to you saying you want to lose weight. And it's like, okay, to lose weight, you need to be in calorie deficit. But if they've already been doing that for 6 to 12 months, there's no point, because you have nowhere to go. It will get worse from there.
I want to keep you on this track, because you brought up the term of reverse dieting. I think so. What you're talking about there is like, there's obviously there's a psychological impact of going through all these diets and being unsuccessful that we need to obviously think about as nutritionists. But then also, like, what's the physiological damage? Like, what's actually happened to perhaps the body and its ability to lose weight? having gone through all these processes? And what are you trying to achieve in reverse dieting?
So your body has a basal metabolic rate. So that's just like if you laid in bed, you did nothing, you didn't even roll over, your body is burning calories. Okay. So that's like for brain function, for heart function, for your liver and your kidneys, detoxification, getting rid of waste, all that kind of stuff. That's using calories. So you have a baseline of calories that every human being has. It's different. Yours would probably be different to mine simply because the physiology of our bodies, gender, height, muscle mass, it's all different for everyone. There's no like true way you can do it. Like if you jump on like one of like a scale and they're like, your metabolic rate is this, or like some calculator spits it out. It's probably not super accurate, but there's always ballpark figures to work off. So there's your basal metabolic rate. And then you have to think about everything else you do in a day. So say if you sat up, that's burning calories. You walked over and you got a drink, that's burning calories. You go walk to your car, drive to work, that's burning calories, because it's all energy that's required to do all this moving. And then you do all this training, if you train, 3, 4, 5 times a week, that's burning calories as well. So you have to understand that what people need to understand is that going to training isn't the only form of calorie expenditure. Life is calorie expenditure, basically. And so if you're dieting, so your body works, like if you're dieting, so if you're trying to lose weight, you have to be in a caloric deficit. So you need to be eating less than your body's burning. Okay. So if you eat less, then, your weight will come down because you're expending more energy than you're consuming. The problem with that is if we dip too low or we stay there in a prolonged state, the body is super smart. It's there to protect you. It loves you. It just wants to keep you alive and thriving and living your best life all the time. So it becomes really efficient at using the calories that you're consuming. And when you hear the word efficient, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm super efficient. Go me. I'm the most efficient person ever. I love that word. But it's not. We don't want it to be efficient. We want it to be, burning through calories all the time. We want it to be just churning over. And so, if let's just say, you're eating 1,200 calories, your body's like, okay, well, I need to learn how to operate on 1,200 calories. And so what it does is it's called metabolic adaptation. So your body adapts to the amount of calories that it's getting in. And so that's when people sort of normally see that plateau, like, oh, I've taken away calories and it worked for a bit and then it stopped. And then I took more away and then it worked a bit and then it stopped. And now I don't know what to do. And so they get to this point where they're getting to seriously low calories that their body's trying to function on. And like I said, coming back to that BMR, if you're dipping below that BMR, now you're messing with brain function, you're messing with heart function, liver function, all your vital organ functions, you're messing with that. And that's when we start to see issues like, some serious energy related issues. You might have you can develop heart disease, you can develop, like liver function failure. It's just not really where you want to be. Things start to shut down. The body starts to shut down. And so you need to reverse your way out of there. So imagine like you're digging a hole and just tipping out all this dirt. You need to start shoveling some of that dirt back into that hole to bring you back to maintenance. So that's what we use a reverse diet for. So that's when it's reverse diet is a process of adding back in calories.
So the concept there is essentially we're adding, we've starved ourselves so much that our body is no longer, I guess, to easy understand it, in a healthy state. And what we're having to do is refeed the body so it can become healthy again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So food is not just calories. Food is nutrients. And that's how your body is energized. So yes, you burn calories, but your nutrients are going throughout your body to make that happen. So if you're not eating enough calories, it's not just you're not eating enough calories, you're not getting enough nutrients. And so by reverse dieting, you're adding in more calories, yes, but you're getting in more nutrients. And by that, it's going to help you obviously, start to feel better. So reverse diet is something that's done quite slowly. If you've been in a chronic chronic stage of, of dieting and deficit, you have to do it slowly. You have to sort of ease your body out of that adaptation. So you can't just, and this is where people can sometimes get a little bit overwhelmed with tracking and things like that and numerical values, because, there's numbers out there, like, say, how you asked me, oh, how do I start? Like, a lot of people might say, just start with your protein, aim for like 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight, and like make sure you have at least 1 gram of fat per kilo of 1 gram of fat per kilo of body weight, and then make your carbs up with the rest of the calories that you've deemed appropriate. But the problem is like, say that they've been eating 1,200 calories, and that number that they get from these numerical values is like way higher. Jumping from 1,200 to that high amount, you have the body gets all that energy in, and it stores it. It can store it as fat because it's become really good at using that 1,200 calories. Now you've chucked in an extra 300, 400, 500 calories on top of that, because 1,200 is now your new maintenance. You're eating in a caloric surplus, so you're going to put on weight. So in order to sort of prevent that from happening, you need to do a reverse diet. And also too, like, if you're eating that much, like this little, and you get this big number, it can be super overwhelming. It can be like, oh my gosh, like now I have to eat all this food. Like, it's really hard. It's really hard. Like, and then it can be like, oh my gosh, I'm so full. I feel so bloated, or like it can just be an overwhelming process. And then they start to second guess themselves. Maybe I'm eating too much. Maybe I have to go back to that. And it's just a cycle. So a reverse diet is a really good way to, number one, be comfortable with eating more food again. Because that's a big thing that I see is people are like scared to eat more, which is really tragic, and something that I went through. Like, I think a lot of people go through it, but
I mean, I've been through it many times as well.
It's a scary thing. It's like we've created this thing in our minds, like, if I eat more, I'll weigh more, and if I weigh more, that's a bad thing. But it's not always the case. And so when you reverse diet, you do it slowly. So it might be 50 to 100 calories every 1 to 2 weeks. And like, and then that's where coaching comes into play. So I have a client who's like really stressed out about 100 calories. I'm like, okay, look, let's just start with 25 calories for the next 2 weeks. 25 calories is really small. That's like, oh my gosh, like half a piece of bread. Everyone can add in a half a piece of bread to their day, like just making it. And again, that's where the coaching is important, because you have to understand that everyone's different, and you have to be able to go, especially when they're new and you're still getting to know each other, you have to be there to be like, hey, I don't want to force you into doing anything you don't want to. I want you to feel comfortable in this entire process. And you're new to this. I'm not just going to come in and, I say jump and you say how high. It's like, hey, like, I need you to be comfortable in doing this. I need you to understand for yourself that even though it's scary, like nothing bad is going to happen. And so you start slow and you start small, and then maybe they get a little bit more confidence, and it's like, okay, sweet. Well, then this, you did that for 2 weeks. That's awesome. You might not be noticing a massive difference now, but that's a huge thing that you've done. You've eaten a little bit more. So now in the next 2 weeks, we're going to add a little bit more. And so you keep doing that until you find, your maintenance range, and that's where sort of your body starts leveling out. But there's three. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to I think you're about to say something amazing there, Simone. But so really, what this is looking like, it's someone who's been in a mass calorie deficit for perhaps a short or a prolonged period of time. We're now having to increase their calories, and what they might actually be seeing in that process is their actual weight increasing.
Yeah.
Go.
So there's 3 different scenarios that can happen in a reverse diet. Number one is you might gain weight. That's like, because you're now eating in a caloric surplus, you might gain weight. This is where people start to freak out. They're like, I didn't want to gain weight. But the thing is like, if you're gaining weight in a reverse diet, your body probably needed it. It probably needed to gain some weight. And like, that's okay. Gaining weight is now seen as like this terrible thing. And if we gain weight, we're lazy, or, we're this or we're that. But it's just like, your body, it's okay to gain weight. And it's not like it's not like, oh, you're stopping there. This is a process. And again, it has to be periodized. So yeah, you might gain a little bit of weight, but that's not the end goal. You're not staying here. This isn't who you will be. It's just part of the process. And so if you gain a little bit of weight, that's, scenario one, and that's okay. And so then you've got the other scenario where your body might stay the same, where your body weight might stay the same. You might see changes in your body where, body composition changes. Like maybe you look leaner, or maybe you look heavier, you look more softer, but your body weight stays the same. So that's scenario two. And then you have scenario three, which is like, it doesn't happen all the time. Typically I see it more in males, in like athletic males, where they drop weight, and they drop it quite rapidly. So what that is, it might not necessarily be fat that you're dropping. It might more be, inflammation and water retention. Because when the body's stressed from calorie deficit can be a physiological stress on the body. When it starts to get more food, it relaxes. And so it can release some of that water and can, and obviously with more nutrients coming in, we can fight inflammation. We don't want chronic inflammation. So that's why you might see like a rapid drop in weight. It might not necessarily be fat. It might just be, things, changing because the body isn't feeling so stressed anymore. But yeah, there's three scenarios. So you can either gain weight, stay the same, or lose.
Nice. And am I right in thinking that the longer someone has been in a deficit where it's actually now, leading to ill health, is that mean that the reverse diet potentially could have to take longer as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a saying that's been going around is if you walk 10 Ks into the woods, you have to walk 10 Ks out. So, if you walk in there, you don't just get out of 5, like you've got to keep going. So, the longer that you have been trying to do all these things, probably the longer time that you should spend just trying to get healthy. And not have such a focus on dieting. It should just be trying to like improve your health and improve your well-being, because diet does massive things to us. There's a decline in mental health, especially like in females where they can get red S, like if they're chronically dieting, especially with female athletes. So, we can run into all these sorts of problems. So it's important that, if you've chronically dieted for a long time in the past and you've bounced around to all these things, you should probably spend a bit of time just like getting healthy and building a better relationship with food and with yourself. Because if you're someone that's like chronically dieting, there's a possibility that, hey, maybe there's some things you need to address within yourself as well along that in that time of reverse dieting and just trying to get back to maintenance.
So in that process, Simone, where you're moving back towards becoming healthier and improving well-being, what are you using to help someone track that process? Because I mean, I understand the concept, but I can really imagine as well, and I've been in this position myself, in processes where I'm trying to get leaner and it's not happening, that whilst I understand that health and well-being are important, I'm still looking at myself in the mirror and not seeing body fat move the way I want it to. And so, it's a hard conversation to know, well, okay, well, how do I know if I'm getting healthy, or how do I know if my well-being is improving?
So like that comes down to like, I feel in this day and age, social media is rife with, progress pics and this person did this and they look like this and this. And so there's that comparison culture. And if we're constantly looking in the mirror, we're constantly analyzing how we look. And, you always see it where people, say you're losing weight and, people at your gym go, oh, are you losing weight? You're like, oh, really? I haven't noticed. It's because like you're living in your body. You know the change. You see it day to day. You pick it apart day to day. And so if you're there constantly picking apart yourself, you're not going to see anything because you're going to see what you want to see, and it's not happening fast enough. And so you kind of have to, again, you have to think long term. If you're constantly just like looking in the mirror, you know, this week I look different, last week I look, you know, different again, you're just going to stay stuck. So you kind of have to remove that stuff first initially, not have any like, you know, weight loss goals or anything like that. And how to do that is like just self-assess. We've lost like the ability to self-assess because now we have watches that tell us how much sleep we've got. We've got bands that tell us our HRV and our recovery, and we rely on that. And it's just like we've forgotten how to self-assess. And as adults, we get really good at, you know, just sort of grinding through it. Like it's just like, oh, this is how I've always felt. This is normal to me. But actually, it's like you feel really shitty. So like thinking, how do I feel during the day? Am I struggling to keep my eyes open? Do I feel unmotivated to do anything? Am I constantly reaching for the coffee pot? Am I just, you know, just like feeling super tired? Then that's probably like something you need to address. If you're going to training and that's the last place you want to be, or you're going to your training, you're enjoying it, but you're just not feeling like, you get in there and you're just like, bleh, just like feel like just disgusting. And then you come home and you're just not hungry, or on the opposite, you're starving. There's some things that are probably like, hey, I need to address that. You go to sleep, you feel like you're laying awake in bed for hours, just staring at the ceiling, or, you know, you fall asleep and wake up 6 times a night, or you wake up to go to pee, like, and it's quite frequent. Like there's some things you need to address as well. So like you look at these, you know, biomarkers, like, am I feeling energized throughout the day? And it's not just like feeling energized in the morning, it's like throughout the day. Because a lot of people hit that 2 p.m. like wall, or like 3:30itis, or whatever, you know, what you want to call it. So it's like if hitting that, you know, that's something you need to address as well. So it's that self-assessment. How am I feeling? Am I hangry? Do my moods go from 0 to 100 so quick? Like, how am I feeling? Like, how am I reacting to the world around me? How am I, what's my mental chatter like? They're all sort of signs that you can see, like, okay, am I in a good space right now, or do I need to sort of address some things to help me feel better?
And all those symptoms could be a result of both under eating and overeating.
Massively. If you're under eating, again, you're not getting the nutrients that your body needs to regulate. In that sense, if you're overeating, now, if you're overeating, and this comes down to, again, nutrient profile. If you're overeating and you're just like eating like, I don't know, hot chips for breakfast or whatever, like that's not the worst thing in the world. But if you're eating hot chips every day for breakfast, that's probably something you should address as an adult. Like, handle your business. Having hot chips every day for breakfast is not a good idea. So it's the nutrients that you're getting in. So you need to be making sure that, you know, if you are eating, the quality of your diet is important as well. And that it all plays a role in that, in how you're feeling.
So all this, what your last 30 seconds of chatter there has just got me thinking about if it fits your macros versus calories in versus calories out versus nutrient quality. What's your stance? What's your just general thoughts on it?
I definitely think, like, handle your business. Probably most people listening, you're adults. So you know what nutritional food is. Fruit and veg, whole meat, like lean meats, nuts, seeds, just stuff that was probably grown in the ground. And, you know, things that aren't super chemically processed. If you're eating, you know, that majority of the time you're eating fruits and vegetables, you're eating lean meats, all that stuff, you'll probably feel pretty good. You know, if you're eating enough and you're sleeping enough, you'll probably feel pretty good. If you're, you know, if it fits your macros, say you're following macros and you're just going out and you're eating pizza for breakfast, you're having burgers for lunch, and then, you know, you're having, I don't know, KFC for dinner, but it's still fitting your macros. You could probably still lose weight doing that, but you'll probably feel pretty shitty. Like you're not giving your body any nutrient value. You're losing weight, but like you're just going to feel crappy. And I suppose you've got to like decide what you want. You can't have both, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's so funny. Like I mean, I certainly admit I've fallen victim to this many times in the past, is that we think that nutrition and macros and all the stuff we've been talking about is linked solely to body composition. And that's, I think, what makes people think about it a lot the first time. And then you get, there's just so much more to life and so many important things that nutrition actually also has a massive bearing on.
For sure.
We ignore because, perhaps we see an extra ab showing, but we forget that it's at the cost of feeling happy and sleeping well and, not having emotional roller coasters in the day, or being able to remember things better or have mental focus. It's funny. And I've certainly been down that road many times in my past.
Yeah, I think it's something you need to experience. Like, I definitely feel like making mistakes is how we learn. And I make mistakes all the time. It's my favorite hobby, actually, making mistakes, because like, that's how you learn. And if you're at the end of the day, what makes you feel good. And, we all understand that fruits and vegetables and stuff make us feel good. And if we're doing that majority of the time, you'll be okay. And with macros and stuff like that, the why they're flexible is because, if you're going out for dinner or something like that, if you're getting fruit, you're getting 80% at the start of the day, and then you go out for a meal, you don't have to stress, because like, it's one meal and, it's not going to ruin your whole life. I think there's always room for foods in your life, all different types of foods. And where I think people can go wrong with macros is that it's the be all and end all. Macros are important simply because, you want to be getting enough protein in to support, muscle health and stuff like that. If you're just eating you're eating your macros, you're eating calories, and it's only coming from carbs and fat, your body's definitely going to look different to someone that's eating, a balance of protein, carbs, and fat. But, they're not the be all and end all. Where people can get caught up in that is that, like, they think, oh, like, because I count macros, I have to count macros for the rest of my life. But like, understand that, we use them as a tool to understand like how much protein we need to be getting, which might end up looking like I need a serving at 5 meals a day. And, I need to be making sure I'm getting carbohydrates, which I'm going to eat before and after a workout. And it just helps you sort of structure your day so that you're getting a balance of, macro and micronutrients. So you do feel, you feel well-rounded and you feel good.
Mm. What is like healthy weight gain or healthy weight loss, Simone? I know that you can't give me an answer. I'm looking for a magical number because it's just sexier. But, you hear stories of, oh, it's amazing, I lost 10 pounds in a week. Or, my mate is bulking now and he's gained, 3 kilograms in a week. Obviously you've just talked about it. It really depends on the case and kind of where they're coming from. But, I think there's definitely a general consensus that the faster we can gain and the faster we can lose, the better we're doing.
Yeah.
That whole process of the body trying to adapt, you talked about it earlier. Like, how long does that take? What's that process even like?
Again, it's all dependent on the person. Genetics plays a role. It's not the only role, but it's definitely plays a role. Your physiology, your gender, that all plays a role as well. Women, because we don't have the same amount of testosterone as men, makes it harder for us to gain muscle. So we gain slower. It also depends on how long you've been training. You have you see beginners, they call them like beginner gains. They get into the gym, they get super strong, they put on, lots of lean muscle mass really quite quickly. And then they start to plateau and it becomes harder and harder. So I think if you're looking at like numerical values, again, it's hard to put on a magical number because again, like you can never know specifically, unless you go and pay and get one of those tests where you like sit in water and they do that test. But I think if you're looking, say you're like looking at a deficit, anywhere between, 500 to 800 grams a week, is probably something that I'd be looking at. Anything more than a kilo is probably like too fast. You don't want to lose too quickly because then you can sort of run into a little bit of trouble there. Again, too, the same way with gaining, you don't want to be gaining too quickly, because that, opens the door for like putting on too much fat mass if you're trying to gain muscle. So the thing though, it's a lot easier to lose and a lot quicker to lose weight than it is to gain muscle. Gaining muscle is a much longer process, for both men and women. So it's losing weight is easier in a sense. I know that some people struggle to lose weight, but like what I'm saying is, it can happen a lot quicker than if you were to gain muscle. I mean, you look at like all those like bodybuilders, let's just say, I mean, even though they're on the gear, like they talk about gaining, going on these 16, 6-month phases where they're like trying to gain muscle. They're like, oh, like I put on like, this much amount, and it's like not very much, because they're just constantly trying to grow muscle. And it's just a long process. And that's the thing about all this, is it just takes a while. And that's the fact. Like it just takes time.
Yeah, I think I remember I can't remember who it was, but it was a documentary in the lead up to Mr. Olympia. And it was like Kai Green and all those guys. But, it was like from one season to another, they were stoked if they put on 0.9 of a kilogram.
Yeah.
And that was a huge win. And these are people who all they do is work out and train in the quest of building muscle.
Exactly. Yeah. It just takes time.
So let's switch gears a little bit then and talk about, you work with Tia-Clair Toomey, fittest woman in the world. What's that process been like? And I'd love to know, kind of like, you come in as a nutritionist, you got someone who's clearly gifted, someone who clearly works extremely hard, and is good at what they do. What's that like? Are you constantly changing her macros? Is she always increasing? Because I mean, she was amazing this year as well. And I just thought she like visibly looked like thicker, stronger, more athletic. I don't know if that's just my own perception. Probably because I'm coming up with an excuse for the fact that she front squatted the same as me. Maybe that's
man. Tia is just like, she's just next level. She just like one in a lifetime athlete, her and Shane together are, they're like the ultimate team. Shane, I've spent a bit of time, not heaps, but like when they train down with like James and stuff, I spent a bit of time with them. And Shane is just so intelligent. Like he's just a wealth of knowledge. And Tia has just like that natural just grit, and she just like wants to win. And so when you put that together, it's just like, it's an unstoppable team. And so like where I come in, I'm kind of like, oh, hey Tia, how you going? Oh, just trying to do this. It kind of feels like that. And like, even, talking to her, like, you're just like, oh my gosh, like this is the fittest woman on the planet. For her, really, we kind of just set at the beginning, just like, some things, because when I started working with her, I think it was like right before regionals. And so it was kind of just like, hey, talking more about like nutrient timing and things like that. Tia's been in sports her whole life, so she has an idea and she knows her body best. So I didn't want to come in and be like, hey, like, here are these things I want you to do, and just like change up the program on, because like the whole thing is, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. For me, it was more about supporting Tia in what she was doing. So any way that I could be of support to her, any way that I could, offer value to her and Shane's operation is what I was there for. So if it's like, hey, at a competition, it's just like, hey, what should I be packing with me? What should I be thinking, knowing the schedule ahead of time? It's like, okay, when do I need to be eating this? When do I need to be drinking this? What should I be doing in the cool down and the warm down, that kind of stuff. So she already had like the blueprint, and they already had, their way of doing it. So for me, more, it was just like, just to add in anything, that would be helpful, rather than go in there and just change all the things up. So for Tia, like, it's, she went through going through the games, and then she went to like the, she went to the Olympics, and then she went to all through her training to regionals, and then back to the Commonwealth Games. So it changed periodically. And, I trust Tia to know herself well, And so, I never am like, hey, eat this amount. Hey, make sure you're hitting this and this and this. It's more of like, hey, like, how are you feeling? How much have you been eating? What's your training's been like? What's your training volume been like? Oh, and then you get the feedback from that. It's like, okay, well, maybe you just need to adjust here and here and here. It's not specifically how I would coach my other clients, simply because, for her, she's got a team around her already. And again, I just want to be there to support her. But yeah, a lot of the stuff for Tia was just making sure that she could just fuel her rigorous training regime, because it is a lot.
So actually, just on that, I think a lot of the people at the top of the game, especially in CrossFit, always redefining how much volume and intensity the human body can handle and still positively adapt from. So, when you look at year on year, like Tia's calories and her macros, are you still increasing every year? Like, generally?
No, it changes throughout the year. It'll change throughout the year. So, when she's in season, it will be higher. When she's out of season, it will be lower. Just the way it changes. And again, it all goes by feel. You never want to force anyone to do something, because as soon as you try to force them to do it, they're just going to be, oh, like, I don't want to do that. So it's more just like giving them options. It's like, hey, like, if you're, if you know that you're going to be running into like, 4 or 5 days straight of training, and like maybe doing like 2 or 3 sessions a day, it's like, hey, we need to be making sure that you're eating, this amount. As soon as she like finishes the games, then maybe it's like, hey, don't even worry about tracking. Like, I just want you to go. Now is the time to recover, both mentally and physically. Let's regroup in a couple of months. So it's, it definitely has to change. For her, particularly, her intake is quite high. Again, like, it will change completely throughout the year.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, for someone who is kind of like Tia, then, someone who's been super consistent with, let's say, their eating, maybe they're not even to the point of tracking macros, but they've just been relatively consistent for a long time. The whole process of knowing when to increase, decrease, and maintain. I know, certainly speaking to, some of my clients who work with nutritionists, that's something they're always confused on. How does my nutritionist know that I need to increase? How does my nutritionist know that I need to maintain it now? Why is she telling me, or he telling me, to decrease? What are your general guiding principles there?
I think definitely. So it depends. Again, I'm always like, it depends.
I mean, it always depends.
That's the word of the podcast. It depends.
It always is. Don't worry. I'm a big "it depends" user as well.
So, if say you've gotten them to maintenance phase and they're just sort of maintaining, it's like, then from there, it's exploring, because you have things like TEF, which is like thermo something of food. I've completely forgot. But so what it does is it equates to like 10% of your calories. So like, when you eat food, you burn calories. So you eat more food, you burn more calories. Obviously, it's not going to be your next training, regime. It's like, oh, what do you do for training? Oh, I just eat some salad. No, like but it does attribute to your overall calorie expenditure. So if you eat more, you're going to burn more. So, you can always explore as well. It's like, hey, like, we've been maintaining for, 3-4 months. Let's just see what happens when we chuck in another 100 calories and say nothing happens. It's like, okay, sweet. We know that maybe, we're still in that maintenance range, because maintenance calories is not a set amount of calories. If I'm like 2,000 calories, it's not like, hey, 2,000 calories is going to be your maintenance. It's probably more a range, because every day is different. You might stand more than you sit, or you might sit more than you stand. Like, so it's different. So you usually have a range of about 200 to 300 calories. So you just try to find the end range. And again, then it becomes, their preference. So say, we chuck in an extra 100 calories and nothing happens. It's like, okay, sweet. Well, we'll hang out here for about a month, and just, be consistent at that. And if nothing changes and you feel like you want to eat a little bit more food, let's just chuck in another 100 calories, see what happens. And then if they start to gain weight, we'll like, okay, we've probably exceeded your maintenance range. We'll knock it back, 50 to 100 calories, see what happens. Again, and that's just like an exploring phase. There's no like set, like, this is definitely going to happen. Like, it's always different for everyone. So you have to kind of explore, and you have to be willing to explore. And then having said that, like if let's say you're in a massing phase, you don't want to be constantly in a massing phase. You want to periodize it. So probably, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, maybe max 6 months. Because it's just a lot of food to consume over 6 months. Eating high calories in a surplus is actually really hard. People are like, oh my gosh, I wish I could eat all that food. It's like, it's actually really hard to eat a lot of food. That's something I found hard when I was like trying to gain some muscle, is just like eating all the food, just because it just is a lot of volume. And you can make that a little bit easier with like liquid shakes and things like that. But eating a high volume of food can be challenging, and it just feels like eating all the time. So you do need to periodize that. And same with weight loss. You probably don't want to be being in a deficit more than twice a year for a max, I always sort of try to keep it to 12, even 16 weeks is probably getting a little bit too far. But, 12 weeks, 3 months is probably like the most you want to go. 16 weeks, maybe if you're like prepping for a show. But like most people, probably 12 weeks is probably the most you want to be in a deficit. And then you want to be coming back out to maintenance. And just like living your best life. Yeah, but you don't want to be doing more than 2 deficits a year. Otherwise, you're going to run into some.
I think it's something you certainly see with athletes these days, compared to probably like 5-10 years ago, where especially, the bodybuilding crowd, you'd see just 2 completely different bodies in an off season and an in season. You see a lot in fighting as well. I still remember Ricky Hatton, who's like the British boxer. He'd be an absolute slob in the off season, slamming Macca's burgers every day. And then he would shred down to this, lose 30 kilograms on fight day. But we definitely see way less and less of that these days. And a lot of these athletes now kind of walk around at fairly lean, healthy levels kind of most of the year. Is that definitely something that's a school of thought that's changed amongst nutrition circles?
Yeah, I think, nutrition is always changing. Like it always cycles through, information all the time. But I definitely think it's moved into the direction of like, hey, if we want a good quality of life and we want to sustain this training, we probably can't, treat our body like a dumpster. Like we need to be making sure that we're making, important, like good decisions, in the off season. And when I say good decisions, I mean like still having the balance, like still enjoying your life, understanding that life isn't always about weight cuts and what you weigh and what your measurements say. It's like, are you actually making memories? Are you present in the time that you're with your friends and your family? But, again, making sure that you're handling your business 80% of the time. But yeah, so that when you do get into a position where you say you might have to cut for a meet or whatever, that you're not so far out where you have to do these drastic things, because that can, again, put you into these positions where, like, I know with fighters, like they're trying to lose all this weight, and, you hear all these cases of people getting rhabdo and stuff like that. And it's just like, why would you want to put your body in that position where you could just go the other way and just make sure that you're, not being a fool and just slamming down burgers, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and going hard on the beers and stuff. And just, eating, consistently. It just makes it a whole lot easier, and the longevity of your career will increase. You see people having all these short careers because, they might have like kidney failure, or again, they have rhabdo and they can never compete again because, if they get too much, creatinine in their blood, it's just like, well, you're in trouble. So it's definitely changing to the point where it's like, hey, we need to make sure that we're following this through the whole year.
Yeah. Simone, if you were to have kind of like a parting line or a parting sentence that you're just kind of like just general thoughts on nutrition for the general person listening, like what's your general go-to advice?
Understand that it's not so dire. Your life is there to be lived, and food and your weight and, how you look isn't what you're going to remember 20 years down the track. You're going to remember that time your friends went out to a last minute, party and you had the best night ever, or that time that you had a big piece of cake with your mom on her birthday, or, you know, just going out and doing things with friends. Like, they're all the things that you're going to remember and take on in your life, and they are the most fulfilling. What you weighed, what you ate, you know, what your body looked like at a certain point, like, it's all kind of a little, it's insignificant in comparison to, you know, what your life has to offer. There's so much beauty and joy and, you know, fulfillment in your life that dieting cannot give you, or your ideal body weight or your ideal body is going to give you. That's not what's going to make you happy. It's all those experiences and all those things that you might be missing out on, because you're chasing this, you know, this number or this body weight, that is actually the important thing. So don't get it twisted. Understand that food and diet is not so dire. It's not, you know, it doesn't have to rule your life. Feeling good and, you know, being a good human being and being kind and having a laugh is the most important, for sure.
Love it. I completely agree. Simone, where can listeners find out more about you and what you do?
Oh my gosh, my Wikipedia page. No, I don't have one of those. Instagram. I use Instagram, but I don't know. I'm not very good with social media. I try to be, but I'm not very good, simply because I just like doing other things. And I'll post some stuff on there, but I'm not as active on the social media as I say as our other coaches. But yeah, if you want to find me on social media, Simone Jane Arthur is probably where you find me that's probably where most of my stuff is.
Yeah. And where do we find out about the method?
You can go to our website, www.themethodnow.com.au. And there's heaps of good stuff on there, how to get started, about all of our different coaches, just some cool information on there as well if people are like looking into it. Or they can just shoot me a message on Instagram and I can help them out.
Awesome. I think what's like a little shout out to the method is that I think the way that you guys communicate with your clients, you guys have an app, super easy to use. I certainly know the clients that I have using it, you know, sing their praises all the time, saying how easy it is to use. So yeah, awesome. Go check out the method if you're looking to work with some top coaches. Simone, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for recording. Thank you for doing 2 podcasts with me. The original podcast, just for my eyes only, and then this podcast for everyone else. There's been loads of fantastic knowledge shared, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. We'll catch you soon, Simone.
All right. Thanks. See ya.